What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about a multiplayer DLC idea for Hogwarts Legacy. Last time around in the last video, we talked about more of a single-player road. I did mention Wizard's Chess, and maybe Wizard's Chess could have some sort of multiplayer component, but I do want to talk about if it's just a complete 180. If they're not going down the road that I laid out in the last video, what's a new one, and what's a multiplayer-centric one? Because I think there's a lot of people dueling, right, has become one that a lot of people have talked about, even maybe just free roaming around Hogwarts. So what would I do? Well, personally, there's an option that I see that's kind of a mix between Gotham Knights and what Gotham Knights did, and just hear me out for that one, and then also Ghost of Tsushima. So Ghost of Tsushima Legends is a big one that a lot of people kind of talk about, right? Where I think the reason why they talk about it is it was a single-player game, right? And you even look at Sucker Punch, they do single-player stuff. Technically, Infamous 2 had a multiplayer kind of component to it, but it was definitely on the side. But they do single-player games. So to have Ghost of Tsushima come out and be as good as it was, and then to drop the Legends multiplayer, and I believe that was free, right? The Icky Islands DLC was actually your story expansion, which is kind of along the lines of what we talked about in the last video. That was paid. It had main quests, side quests, all that stuff. Again, like we talked about in the last video. But first came the Legends multiplayer, which was phenomenal, and just a way really to do things you had already done in the main game but with friends. But here's the kicker: it was actually quite different because of the different modes and almost even the dungeon level things that they did with it. So it wasn't literally going out into the open world with a friend. Now you could do that, right? In fact, that would maybe be more towards Gotham Knights with its 2-player mode, but because Hogwarts Legacy I do think was designed and intended to be a single-player game, I would lean more towards you're not going to be able to go out into the open world. Now, I know there's a pretty prominent modding community out there that's working on the multiplayer for Hogwarts Legacy that'll allow you to have multiple people inside of Hogwarts Castle. I think that's fantastic. As I've just said before, even before this game came out, I just don't think that's something that they're going to do, actually Avalanche, right, like officially them. I just absolutely can't see it. So you could also do it how Gotham Knights did its wave-based mode. Now that, to be flat out honest with you, I think would be the easiest. Now, of course, it's easy for me to say that without having worked on the game, but at the same time, I will say this: Gotham Knights already had the multiplayer, right? So it was literally designed for 1 or 2 people. I would actually argue that game was probably designed for 2 people. And then the wave-based mode, right? Pretty generic, nothing all that fancy, but you know what? Honestly, kind of effective. You go in, you just face wave after wave after wave of these different rooms. Now, the rooms are relatively the same. There's these different objectives that you do. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 of them in all, and you just rotate, right? And you could play with 4 people. So originally you could play with 2, then they upped it to 4, but what you're doing is kind of the same. Now, for Hogwarts, I actually think that makes a lot of sense. The reason why I would say it's probably the easiest is because you can just simply put us in a cave or, some sort of dungeon-like thing and just roll wave after wave after wave of enemies. I'm not saying it would be spectacular. This isn't like the most perfect DLC you could ever come up with, but I think it would be effective. I think it would work. I think people do want to play with other people. Now, the question is, do people want to duel each other? Because that definitely doesn't seem like it's going to happen. I think the best you would get is 2 people, maybe more, maybe 3 or 4, right? And you would have some sort of wave-based thing that you're going off of. Honestly, the only difference I would say between Gotham Knights' wave thing and then Ghost of Tsushima Legends was the kind of diversity of Ghost of Tsushima Legends, right? It was a little bit more fleshed out. It had more objectives. There was more modes just in general for it. The classes, the kinds of characters you could choose to be, the leveling. So it really, Gotham Knights, I'd say, was the more just run-of-the-mill, almost generic, but still effective. I'm not saying it was like the worst thing ever. It was definitely effective. I think Ghost was that and then more. I honestly see Hogwarts somewhere in that range. Now, you could say because of Warner Bros., maybe you're more inclined to go Gotham Knights. Maybe they've seen that. Maybe that's something that's been shared around like these studios. I don't know. Like I said in the last video, I do think what I said there would actually be my go-to. If I was pitching DLC for this game, I would go towards that. I get multiplayer. I get people want, multiplayer Quidditch, or we talked about, again, Wizard's Chess. Could you do a multiplayer component to that? I think you could. But if we're talking about going all out, the focus of the DLC or the expansion, I mean, like I said, I don't know if they would do it, but the Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer was free. And that was just kind of like a throw-in thing that really I don't think anybody expected that. If you're going to make us pay for it, or if it's just an added bonus, whatever. I think an added bonus, I mean, yes, that would be free, so like I love saving money, but you also think about how many more people would buy the base game to then know that they could play some sort of objective mode wave thing with their friends. I mean, I think that would be rather cool. And you can do things like adding enemies, by the way, right? So it's not just doing literally everything that you've done. Hey, maybe you can add, like we talked about for the single-player DLC, maybe you add a couple spells. Maybe you add a different enemy type or two. Maybe you add a new boss, right? I mean, you can do those things, and that would be kind of part of the package deal. So that's kind of what I would say. I would say somewhere in the range, with Gotham Knights being maybe the low end, Ghost of Tsushima Legends being the high end. Either you flat out copy one of those two, or you do something in between, some sort of unique mixture that would include, again, bosses, different enemies, maybe different spells, different locations, different arenas, maybe like a fire kind of pit. I don't know, you get creative with it. I'm not going to tell them what to do, but there you go. There would be my idea for a multiplayer kind of based DLC or expansion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. If you want to support or follow me on any of my other social media accounts, all the links are in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next one.